All right, Landon, we said we would do something, and that is this show. Guess how many we were at this year?
Is this Money Lap wrapped?
This is wrapped. Yeah, this is wrapped. We're going to steal it from Spotify for a second, which you can also listen to us on if you're not watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. How many are we at?
46.
We're at 46, and it is December 11th, Wednesday of 2024. That's a weird way to say a date.
Year of our Lord.
Year of our Lord. Year of the Lord. We committed to doing this, and we have done that. We are almost every week there for your viewing and listening pleasure to discuss and talk about motorsports and other things going on in our lives, which has always been fun sometimes, I guess. I mentioned last week, over 400,000 of you have interacted with the Money Lap, either viewing or listening across these 46 episodes. So we appreciate that. That means a lot to us. This concludes basically our first full year. We started in May of 2023, so it wasn't a real full year. So we've been here this whole season. We're going to continue on. This is our last show of 2024, though. We sort of said we might have been last week, but it wasn't last week. It's this week. This is the last one, so you'll have to go without us for a couple weeks, maybe a month. We're going to decide when we come back. I've got some announcements coming out next week that you'll see why I'm so busy in January. And we're going to have to sort through that and see when we come back, but we'll definitely be back by February. Is that a good pact? Would you agree?
Sounds good to me.
All right, you'll be there.
Wait, we're taking January off too?
We might be. Well, I don't know how far. I'd like to do something maybe before that big race at the end of the year, end of the month, that is 24 hours long. But I do have quite a hectic schedule in January because of what I'm announcing next week. And some
January,
other things.
huh?
And some other things that are coming together. So January will be a little bit crazy, man. I'm sorry. But we'll try and get
kind
in
of
there.
Racing is even going on in January?
Well, hell, you got
so
the
busy?
Dakar coming up here at into basically the 1st of January. They're going to go run around the desert for a bit. You know, them trucks and cars and bikes and quads, side-by-sides. That's what's going to happen.
We also won't have a producer in January.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I'm going to get married, so I'm going to see you guys.
And apparently that takes the entire month.
It does.
What?
He's cashing in some PTO for
wait a second. Is this like marriage leave? First we've got the 6 months that some of these
I think
tech
it's
companies,
called bereavement.
This is I can't believe this. How can we be the motorsport show sweatshop that we hope to be with letting you have a month off to get married?
I don't know, man. I just work here, so you figure it out.
That is preposterous.
Well, we are proud.
We're proud of
Josh.
Iron Fist. Yeah, that's good. Don't tell my girlfriend you're getting married.
I hope this doesn't put pressure on you, Parker.
See, that's going to be my excuse for now, is that I'd have to take a month off, and I can't do that. I can't let our listeners and our viewers have a month away. So that's why I'm not married, all right? Shannon, if you're listening, this is just a business decision. Let's be honest.
Oh, you're digging deeper. You're digging too deep.
Oh, man, I don't think there's a ton of news out there for us to discuss. So let's dive into one of the reviews we had as we head to the PR lap. There's no racing to discuss from our side. We didn't race anything. But we did get one review on Spotify that I thought summed up our year pretty well. This is from Potatoes. And this person said, 10 out of 10, a mid-December podcast full of chaos, hate for track limits, new business opportunities, an ad read, behind-the-scenes insight, and some beef. After all that, I have a small amount of hope that maybe Kyle Busch will get on the show. I'll be waiting for a show or an email, and maybe my Parker Kligerman signed Spike Light coolers, coolers diecast from Spoiler Diecast, ordered using code MONEYLAP. Stay fast, happy holidays, and all my homies hate track limits. Amen, Potatoes.
There is. I don't even have to do a Spoiler Diecast ad read right now because that was it.
No, we nailed it. We don't need it.
We nailed it.
We also hostily took over their company last week, so they even acknowledged it.
Well, Yeah, it got acknowledged on Twitter.
It did.
We have taken over the domain now for SpoilerDiecast.com. It is now MoneyLapDiecast.com. The MoneyLapDiecast.com.
Yeah, and
so if you are a racing enthusiast looking for high quality diecast and apparel, look no further than the MoneyLapDiecast.com, one of the fastest growing companies in the industry. What sets us apart, Parker? Well, we're anyways.
What Landon? Yeah, no. We thank you, Spoiler Diecast. They have been our most consistent partner as we've done this whole Money Lap show, and they mean a lot to us. And we didn't get into this to take over the game, but we did. And you know what? That's a cross we're gonna have to bear. So
don't actually have to go to MoneyLapDiecast.com. You can just go to SpoilerDiecast.com and do your Christmas shopping there.
Just do that. Yep. Go to Spoiler Diecast. Get your Christmas gifts. Get your diecast. I did see the Spike Light Coolers Chevy that I drove is now in, so you will be receiving those in the coming weeks, which is pretty cool. That domain, by the way, MoneyLapDiecast.com goes nowhere. So,
do you want me to? I could buy it. We could go through with this.
I don't think we need to own it. I don't think. Let's let the community buy it. They can have it if they want to run with it. But you're gonna have to run it where it directs directly to Spoiler Diecast, because we're not looking for a real hostile takeover here. It's just sort of thing that just happens, and then we gotta clean it up afterwards. Should we talk racing?
Let's talk racing.
All right, last race of the year for F1. Not a ton of things happened other than turn one. There was the move by Max Verstappen on the inside of Oscar Piastri. They touch wheels, spin out, that sort of thing. Some people said it was too aggressive. You had, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the commentator, Martin Brundle, who said that it was overly aggressive because he had already won his championship, and McLaren was fighting for the constructors' title. I don't agree with that, but once again, it's turn one in F1. Like, that is where it happens. That is where the getting is good, and you got to go for it. So he went for it, and they touched wheels, and is what it is. So McLaren was still able to win the constructors' title. Lando Norris won the race. Ferrari put up a valiant effort, finishing second and third, but they were not able to get it done. There was not enough. Big day for McLaren, though. Big day. First time they won the constructors' title in 26 years.
Wow.
Think about Zach Brown. Does he look like a genius?
He does. Which I was, critical of him several years ago. It took it was a slow build, right? Didn't it feel like a slow build? It took him some time to get traction.
He did.
But now look at it.
I think there's a couple things that go into that. First and foremost,
Didn't you say that on the Dale Jr. download he said they have $300 million in sponsorship?
Yeah, something like that. Sponsorship revenue. He did his when he was brought in there. He tells the story. He was being courted to basically run F1 by Liberty Media. He declines that, goes and decides to go to McLaren as CEO, and his role was to kind of turn around their commercial efforts, because when he got there, they had like no sponsorship. If you remember, that was when Fernando Alonso was there. It's when those Honda engines weren't working at all. The cars were running blank, and he was brought in to basically, as a sponsorship guru, to come in there and turn around the commercial side. They were losing money hand over fist. Their auto business was not doing great things, although they make pretty great sports cars. They don't make a lot of them, so you can't make huge amounts of revenue doing that, or profits even. And so they were just in a really tough spot, and they were even that spot, if you remember a couple years ago, they had to basically take a loan on all of their historic cars at one point, because they were in such financial issues, but have turned that around, and obviously aided by the explosion F1 has had across all the teams in terms of their value now being that every F1 team is currently valued over $1 billion, which was not the case 5-6 years ago. So huge for them. He definitely did what it took on the commercial side, because in the last couple of years, I feel like we have a joke, which is that are you really a tech company if you don't sponsor some portion of McLaren out of Silicon Valley? They have to be there.
Well, yeah, and they also, it's probably no coincidence that Zach Brown and his American motorsports sponsorship experience, because remember, he comes from the motorsports sponsorship agency world. that experience and his reputation and his positioning in the market probably allowed him to capitalize on the popularity of F1 in the USA more than anyone else.
Oh, yeah. And they made it clear.
He knows the culture. He knows how to make deals with U.S. companies. He's done it before. Not that those other guys haven't, but I think that he was very well positioned to reap the benefits of Drive to Survive, and he did. And then multiple years after Drive to Survive, you see them actually reap those benefits on the racetrack with having the fastest cars, right? Just go back and look at the timeline. Drive to Survive, look at where McLaren was at the time. Then look a year later, their popularity is going up, their cool factor is going up, the drivers are cooler, there's more money, there's more sponsorship. Then another year later, the cars are fast. It's crazy.
Weird how that works.
Yeah.
Does money make you go fast?
It helps. It helps.
Interesting. Okay, that's a new one for me. I never knew that. Wow. Speaking of which, winning the constructors title was worth $140 million in prize money in McLaren. Which, if you finished dead last like Sauber, you would have gotten $60 million. Which is a big change, by the way, from a couple years ago when they redid the Concord agreement when they wanted to help out the smaller teams. It used to be 20% to the winner, which would have been around $200 million for McLaren, and 4% to the last place team. It's now 14% to the winning team and 6% to the lowest team of the sports, of their portion of the revenue. So you see that just then and there in terms of 140 to 60 instead of 40 to 200 million, what it would have been before they did that, which was a pretty big deal that those top teams were willing to give up revenue to help the smaller teams in a lot of respects and help the health of the sport. That's something that I feel like doesn't get enough credit in the sort of the competitiveness of F1 when you look at this past season, just how competitive it was, especially amongst the top three. Once Red Bull sort of flattened out in their development curve there midway through the season, you had Ferrari rise up, you had McLaren rise up, Mercedes was able to win even, you look at even late in the season, Alpine and what their performance was like, Haas late there. This field condensed in a way that I don't think we've seen in the past across the field, and I bet a lot of that has to do with the fact that they disperse the money more equitably through the whole field. Plus, you have the budget cap, $135 million. That seemed to work. That's been a smart thing.
It's interesting that budget cap is right in line with what the top tier prize money is.
Isn't that nice? It's like they designed it that way.
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at it in our notes and seeing just the visual of it and how it works. And, I know that F1 is not the best example of a motorsport series with great parity. It does seem to have better parity than it has in the past, does it?
Yeah.
Is it in a good spot parity wise?
I think so. I don't remember the statistics on winners this
other
year,
than the fact that Red Bull last year won 19 out of the 20 races. But this year, the second half of this year, when Red Bull finally had their fall from grace, we got to see a race for the win that was sort of already happening last year. It was just a race for third place.
Yep.
It's just interesting. Yeah.
It is. Alpine was able to win the midfield fight. When before Brazil, they were basically sitting down in, I think, 8th, and they vaulted to 6th, and they were able to beat Haas and RB, which, by the way, the RB team, Racing Bulls, which I guess did you see they put out this tweet saying like, hey, we know our name as Visa Cash App RB is really confusing. No one knows what to say. We see 92 different versions of it, from VCarb to, Cash App RB to whatever. And so they were like, we're going to make it simpler. It's Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. And I was like, if you just throw another word or two in there, we might be able to clear it up even further.
It's like just if they don't understand you, just repeat it and say it louder.
That cleared it up. Thank you, guys. So I guess they want us to say Racing Bulls, and I guess that's easier. I don't know. Visa, Cash App, RB, whatever. Well, let's one more thing from the F1 world that I saw today from our friends at motorsport.com. They posted this on Instagram. The highest paid F1 drivers 2024. Verstappen, $75 million. Lewis Hamilton, $57 million. Lando Norris, $35 million. Alonso, $27.5 million. Leclerc, $27 million. Russell, although he knows George Russell, $23 million. Oscar Piastri, $22 million. Perez, $19.5 million. Sainz, $19 million. Pierre Gasly, $12 million. Obviously, the source is Forbes, so not take it all with a grain of salt a lot often in terms of where they get these numbers and how they come to them. Those are some pretty big numbers. Those, if you go back 5 years, I would say you're looking at Lewis being the top at around 30-something, maybe. And that bottom one, Pierre Gasly, would have been about $3 million. They might have said 5 or 7, but it wasn't that at all. It was less than that by a lot. If there's anyone who's benefited more than the teams in the rise of F1, it has been being a driver in the last 5 years in F1. Which is pretty amazing.
They are in these are the glory days right now for the modern F1 driver. This is the heyday for sure. That is a great point. Popularity, fame and popularity, pop culture popularity does wonders for that. It sure does.
Wow. You really just dug deep with that one.
Sorry, I just stare at these numbers and it's like, oh my gosh. I mean, I don't think there's a single NASCAR driver that even makes it onto this list salary-wise.
Not anymore.
$12 million?
Nope.
Gasly at $12 million?
Your highest paid driver next year will be Denny Hamlin, and he's not even at that now.
Yeah.
Maybe if he won the championship. But now, if you go back 10 years, there would be 5, 8 drivers in the Cup Series that would fit on this, that would have made this board.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts sometimes, people. We don't try to just talk about money because we're Money Lab, but motorsports and money go really closely together. That time period, actually, I would say 15 years ago was the real going when the getting was good, but we missed it, man.
2000 to 2010.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things, it's a lot shorter than you think. It was just 10 years.
How long it lasted?
What was it, 95 to 2010, you think?
No. It was right when you got in the 2000s. Then apparel and merchandise was the big deal, right, in the 90s.
Right.
And maybe a little bit into the 2000s for sure. And then I would say towards the tail end, right before the recession, and a little bit past that, the merchandise was on its way down, but you still had big numbers that have just all but evaporated right now. Wow, this got sad. Jeez, are these guys? Are they even happy? Like, what happened? Are they race car drivers?
It's the end of the season, end of the year for the Money Lap.
This is the saddest show I've ever listened to. We are the worst show on the internet. Thank you for whoever listens and watches. We appreciate it.
What kind of Jim Gaffigan bit was that?
He's been on he has a new special out, so he's always popping up. I love that voice he does. I think it's so funny. One more bit of F1 stuff out there before we swear we'll talk about Hundred Motorsports. Valtteri Bottas does not have a ride for next year. He put out a quote that said, "Once Audi was confirmed, I was always told I would be a pillar for the project." Well, that didn't happen. If you don't know what we're talking about, basically Audi is joining with Sauber to become a works team for Audi, which is why you have the driver changes with Nico Hülkenberg going there. Obviously, a German car manufacturer. I think you could put 2 and 2 together there. But it left Valtteri without a ride. He was wearing that T-shirt for the last portion of the season saying, "What's next?" I don't know what's next. Some people think, maybe a supporting role, a third driver role at Mercedes, something like that. But, man, that guy, in the last race there was just still doing great things and still fast and just that team, I think in a lot of ways let him down. I did see a quote where he said, if I knew it was going to go this way, I would have made a different decision for going to Sauber. So that didn't work out for him. Oh, actually, Josh just put it in our notes. If I could go back 3 years, I would have gone somewhere else. Unfortunately, that's how it is. This was a big mistake.
Man, you don't see drivers
never
be that frank about things.
That's why I
only in
it.
F1 you get that kind of that. Is it because they make that much money?
Yes, it's 100%. It's the same reason
they can say whatever they want.
It's
He's
the
not
same
even on
reason-
this list of highest paid drivers.
Well, but it's the same reason you have football players who get done and then they just go crazy and say whatever they want, all that stuff. You know and it's always bothered me a little bit.
This is my argument.
But
This
hold
is
on,
my argument. Oh,
yeah, this has bothered me in a lot of motorsports. Is that people are too, they're too scared to lose their income because they don't make enough to lose their income, right? And so you put people in a box, and you talk about drivers, that sort of thing. If they're not making superstar money, they are going to be scared to speak their mind.
they're not going to act like superstars.
They're not going to act like superstars. Exactly. Is that where you're going?
There
with
is
it?
yes. Like this is, we need to have someone to balance the weight of this debate. Otherwise, we just sound like
we just agree with each other.
We just sound like door bumper clear spotters that are just talking about how awesome and necessary spotters are. Right? Well, we're the driver podcast talking about how awesome and necessary drivers are.
Whoa.
So I would
wait. Show.
Right. Show.
Yeah, sorry.
But I would love this to make this or I would love to flush out this idea that it's just like, what would happen if the drivers just got a huge chunk of the money?
It'd be
$50
different.
million. If it paid $10 million to be a 30th place driver, if they were legit celebrity superstars, would you have
sport?
Would it flush out the vanilla personalities?
Oh yeah. Well, I think it would go down to obviously performance would be massive, and then so that would be like right then and there, performance is everything, and then the second thing behind that is if you get there and you make $10 million in 1 year, you can literally tell everyone to F off whenever you don't like what they're saying.
Yeah, and so it would just the drama, the stories, the interest, the public interest. Maybe that's where the money should be invested instead of simulation engineering.
You think there's someone at NASCAR that would be listening to this and disagreeing with us?
I know there is.
Oh, interesting. Okay,
we're one of the top listened to shows by executives and owners all around,
and drivers, as we find from our text often.
Industry influencers.
We're not just messing with you, by the way. We do get texts about this show, so from numerous people within the industry. That's all the big topics that were coming out of F1. So we thought, with this being our last show of the year, we would do a little bit of like a year in review, if you'll indulge us for a minute, and maybe a little longer in a minute, and then we will make some predictions of 2025, because that's what you do. You make hot take predictions in December before the season. You game with that?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, I'm guessing, Josh, did you set this up that we'll start with F1 and go to NASCAR, or are we doing this all across?
You could do it however you would like. You did promise the viewers something other than F1, so if you want to get right into F1, that could be a nice bait and switch right there. And
all right. Well, we got a couple end of the year topics. So, you know what? You can, Landon, I'm going to let you put this across. Each one you can put across all motorsports. How about that?
Okay.
So, most underrated drive of the year.
What's yours?
Well, what? Games.
I don't
You had
know
to
if
think
it's
about it
under.
for a second. You said
No,
you
no,
looked at
I
our
don't
notes.
know. No, I know what drive I just am most excited about, but I don't know if it's the most underrated or not. And that was Tyler Reddick in Homestead.
Ooh, that's a good one.
But again, I don't know if that's the most underrated. I mean, maybe because it wasn't a championship race. I mean, it was a walk-off win to get him into the playoffs or to get him into the next final round, but that was just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe it is underrated. Maybe it will go down because it wasn't for a championship. It wasn't the Daytona 500. It was a playoff race in Homestead. It'll get forgotten about. Yeah.
Mine would be the 2024 Xfinity race at the Roval last 10. I'm kidding.
Oh gosh.
Most underrated drive. This was a tough one. I was thinking about this a lot, and I kept going back to even going back to the Rolex 24, and I try to think of heroic drives I saw back then, and it's really tough to go further back than the summer, right? Where you're just like, wait, what happened? Who was there? That sort of thing. But I think the most underrated drive of the year, and people might be shocked by this one, Chris Buescher, Watkins Glen, beating Shane Van Gisbergen in a straight-up fight at a road course. Come on. That was insane.
That was pretty good.
Insane. It was an incredible last couple laps, and I have to think, because he's such a quiet guy, that probably will never get the press it deserves, but that was one of the more amazing efforts to force him into a mistake, first of all, and then what they did through the carousel and not backing off and just all of that, getting past and not giving up. I just thought that was a hell of a drive. That was a guy who in the moment found more than maybe he even knew he had, right? Mm-hmm. And I like to see that. And so to me, that is right up there as one of the best drives. The only other one that will be highly rated because it's F1 would be Max Verstappen at Brazil in the wet. 17th to first. I mean, yeah, he's Max Verstappen, so everyone will be like, well, it's already rated.
Well, that's why it's underrated, because it's just assumed that, it looks like a ho-hum win.
His car was not the fastest car in the last portion of the season. And when they gave him, they always say rain is the great equalizer.
Put it back in the driver's hands.
Bam. The guy was like, oh, yeah, no problem. I'm just going to win this thing. Thanks.
It's so funny you mentioned that one, because I was going to suggest Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly at Brazil getting a 2 and 3 for Alpine and shooting the value of winning getting their constructors points that day. Yep. Getting so many points for that drive in Brazil.
That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, those are good, but they kind of got beat by one guy who did better. So, just saying.
Alpine versus Red Bull, I think.
Yep. All right, you've had time to look at the next one, Landon.
The next one, what's the next one here? Most impressive feat overall. That for me, that's McLaren.
Yeah.
6 wins. 4 with Lando Norris. That is the most impressive feat overall for me, easily.
I think that has to be for me. I got to agree. I'd like to disagree with you, but I can't.
I'm glad you let me go first, because it sounds like you were going to steal mine.
Yeah, no, it was the first thing in my head. Not just because it's the most recent, because you do get recency bias and this sort of thing. But as we said earlier, what a turnaround. First time in 26 years, that whole organization. I am a little sentimental for McLaren in a lot of ways. I don't show it maybe too often on this show. Maybe people notice, especially if you watch on YouTube, you might notice the McLaren MP4, was it 19 that I have up here of Kimi Räikkönen. That was my favorite team growing up. I wanted to be Kimi Räikkönen. I love Ferrari as well, as you see with the Ferrari F1 2001 over my other shoulder. But that team to me means a lot, and I feel like they're looking like the team I fell in love with in the late 90s, early 2000s. So that's impressive to me. All right. Biggest surprise.
I mean, biggest surprise.
Doesn't have to be an on-track thing.
Oh, now you're killing me. You go on this one.
My biggest surprise?
Yeah.
Seeing 2 NASCAR Cup teams, of which are going to have basically 6 charters, which is a massive percentage of the chartered field, currently suing NASCAR.
Easy.
At the moment. So I would say that was the pretty big surprise for me to see this year. That's, as I've joked about often, uncharted territory for us in the motorsports world in NASCAR.
What about Lewis Hamilton moving to Ferrari?
Oh,
In the
damn.
literally early season announcement, leaving Mercedes to go to Ferrari rather than retiring at Mercedes.
That
And
is
going through an entire lame duck season at Mercedes.
That's a great one. Yeah, I think
pretty big.
that took the world by storm. That was a shock, no doubt. So that was a really good one. Josh, what is this one? Most screwed over.
Who was the driver who, no matter what they did, reality took them by the helm and made it so that their day was not their day? My pick for this one is Parker Kligerman at the Roval.
Yeah, that's the worst, baddest beat.
That's
Definitely the worst beat.
Yes. So when the listeners are like, wait a second, they just made these every time you have the opportunity to just say the 2024 Xfinity Series race at the Roval. I'm going with that one too because it did hurt a lot. So that one burned. That was the most screwed over for sure. I'm feeling that was the baddest beat of the motorsports world in 2024. I'm glad to have taken this trophy and I will wear it proudly and display it proudly.
Mine was Kyle Larson.
Really?
I think he took the baddest beat. I think he was I just think he was so freaking fast that last 2 months of the season and was plagued with these flat tires, wrecks, just a lot of other stuff. And it was a pretty bad beat for him to not be in Phoenix race for championship.
If you want to pick one like that, Denny Hamlin would be up there. The way his playoffs went. It was just disastrous.
Yeah, but I don't gosh, it sounds like I'm picking on Denny, but is it a bad beat or is that is that more of a pattern?
Well, he hasn't had the best playoff runs, there's no doubt. But this one felt especially just each start of each round, there was just something that would go wrong or just they couldn't, there wasn't a clean race. They had the pit crew issues. It's just everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong. And it was a team that midway through the summer, you're like, oh, this is it's always his year till it's not. But it just felt like this is the year. This is the year they get it done. And then there was just they could not find the magic in the playoffs and, didn't get the chance to race on. I thought his drive at Homestead, if you want to talk about the great drives, Tyler Reddick overshadows him being up there late in that battle against Blaney and Reddick and Rever and his drive up there when they really were in a position they needed that. So
I think Josh just put in the chat KFB Kyle Busch.
Oh,
There's some bad beats there.
Just
not getting on our show.
No.
Week after week after week after week.
Been devastating.
Well, remember how close he was to winning the second week of the year.
Yeah. And it actually started the year with a ton of optimism and a ton of momentum. No, that's a really good point. And then kind of, had that midway season slump, and then at the end of the season, it's like he was so close again several times. That was a good one.
Yeah,
Definitely
Kansas.
Legitimately got to pour one out for Kyle Busch and his winning his, what was it, 19-year-long win streak?
Yeah, he was trying to get to 20. The Kansas, for me, was the one that just hurt. When he spun off a 2, when Chase Briscoe, was kind of taking some of the air away, when he had Chastain beat for sure. And, that team had just been so beat up, and there they were in a position to finally just continue this streak, get a win. They'd done everything right and, done strategy and that sort of thing to get there. And he had it. It was in the bag. And it still got away from them. And I asked Ross Chastain that week, I remember being like, hey, man, do you think you could have got back by him? He was like, absolutely not. So
yeah,
he had it. Biggest drop-off / biggest surge. So I'm guessing, Josh, what you meant by this was from the start of the season to the end, and then the surge kind of went into some of those.
Yeah.
Biggest drop-off for me? Well,
yeah.
I mean, that's an easy one for me. That's Red Bull Racing. They fell off a cliff there halfway through the year. And
I looked at this a little bit differently.
Okay.
I said Stewart Haas Racing.
Oh, well, yeah.
So I mean,
that's a pretty big. They fell off a cliff, literally. Died on impact.
Yeah. So that's however, their performance at the end of the season was probably stronger than ever.
Yep.
Or not stronger than ever, but stronger than, than recent, It's as strong as it's been.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was a big drop off there. Maybe that should have been biggest surprise or something like that. But for biggest surge,
that's a pretty big.
You'll like
drop
this
off,
one,
by the way.
You'll like this one, Parker.
Okay.
My biggest surge, I had Pato O'Ward.
Oh. Popularity?
Yeah, popularity, record wins.
All right, I see that. I mean that video, of him down in Mexico was insane. In that mall when it was like Brad Pitt was there. I couldn't believe it.
Kind of another continuation of just the success of the McLaren brand. 3 wins, most for that team.
All right. My biggest surge, though. Let me think here. Biggest surge. I had it. Josh, you go now. I forgot.
All right, my biggest drop off, Andretti F1. My biggest surge, Cadillac F1.
Did you see that? Did you see that motorsports marketing guru genius that said that Cadillac is not a premium enough brand for F1?
What a bunch of malarkey! And then, so first of all, it's like, yo, bro, I don't know if you've noticed, but Cadillac V-Series cars are some of the best high-performance cars that come out of America. Secondly, Cadillac is a premier brand. That is why it's Chevy's premier luxury brand. Like, what?
I know, but he's like, Cadillac is not premier enough for him.
Yeah, no.
It's not as premier as Aston Martin or Mercedes or Ferrari or McLaren.
He's an elitist.
I want to know the target demographic, who buys Ferraris and McLarens compared to who buys Cadillacs. I think they're kind of all in the same age range. So,
yeah, maybe. I don't know about that, but I would say the other thing that was really funny was Ash Vandelay, the content creator, posted a picture of the Cadillac hypercar racing against the Ferrari hypercars and Aston Martin and everyone. It's like, wait a second.
Hey, they do pretty good.
Yeah. They're pretty much there, bro. Biggest surge. I didn't give you guys one.
And their premier SUV freaking grocery getter is a $178,000 V Series Escalade, but
not premier. Not elite. Sorry. Nope. We're far past the Nelly music videos of the Escalade being cool. Come on, bro. Come on. That guy. What a bunch of malarkey. I still haven't got a biggest surge. And I had one, and now I forgot it again. No, I've got it. Biggest surge, NASCAR's TV contract. That's a big jump. Big jump. They got a big amount of money. The Xfinity Series took a huge jump money-wise. That was a big surge. Big surge. Can they use it correctly and wisely? Time will tell. But it was a huge surge in money.
Can I give an honorable mention to the short track package?
What about it?
As biggest surge, it seems like 2 years ago looked like a lost cause, but I feel like towards the end of the year, the short tracks were actually getting really, really good. So I don't know, just shout out for that.
You know, is that so much the
Josh's
package?
biggest surprise is short track racing got better in NASCAR.
Yeah.
We're blown away by to see
Holy
that.
moly! Well, was it the package or the tire? Because it really was kind of when they went to that super soft tire by the end of the year that they discovered post Bristol in March. I feel like that had the biggest effect, was just deciding to go as soft as possible, which Martinsville proved tires did matter. So, I think the tire had a huge part to do, played a huge part in that. All right. That's our big topics. What is this one, Josh?
So let's look back at our scorecard for the year. This is your end-of-year review of drivers or teams in new positions or new places and how they performed at these new places or new positions. So if a driver went to a new team or a new team was formed? How did they do looking it back?
So in 2024 from 2023, in F1, we really only had Ricciardo replacing Nick DeVries, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and you can quickly go through these. And if you want A, B, C, D, or F, that's their report card.
Well, I'm going to give that an F because he got fired before the end of the season. So that was not a positive change.
Okay.
Sorry, bud.
Okay, so the NASCAR ones, if I understand this right, going from 2023 to 2024,
correct.
Josh Berry replaced Kevin Harvick.
Yep.
A, B, C, D, or F.
Yep.
What did he get? B plus?
That's high.
You think that's high?
Yeah, I think it's high.
I thought he did well.
I'll give him a C.
I mean, to inherit a ride from a legend in a lame duck year for a team.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to think of like the best moments. You know, some of his best moments was what? Daytona in July, the August race, leading.
Richmond.
Yeah,
didn't he run really well at the short tracks? Did he not win?
He did not win a race.
Okay. Eric Almirola retired at the end of
the place.
Gosh, we're big NASCAR guys. We're big NASCAR guys. I'd completely forgotten this season by now.
Eric Almirola retired. Top threes, by the way.
Yeah, so a C.
Okay, C. Eric Almirola retired from the 10 car at the end of 23. Was replaced by Noah Gragson. What was that?
I'm gonna give that closer to your first one for Josh Ray. That to me is a B.
I would give that a good grade too because I think Noah was. I don't think that he had a great rookie season in Cup, and I think that a lot of people were down on him after his success in Xfinity. He had a rough time at Legacy Motor Club, and I think he redeemed himself.
Yeah,
and he didn't have to knock it. What's great, this is almost like a lesson for drivers in general. He didn't have to knock it out of the park to redeem himself. He just got in the car and did a good job.
That's a great point. Great point. And I think because of that, you know, he's in the ride he'll be in next year because of that performance.
Because he did his job.
He did his job. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, he did what they needed him to do. So Justin Haley moved from Colleague Racing, which was a big surprise. That was a big move.
Yep.
To Rick Ware Racing. And do you want to kind of pair this with Daniel Hemric taking over the 31 at Colleague Racing?
Sure. Yeah.
So that was sort of a move that happened. Justin Haley moved out, went to Rick Ware. Daniel Hemric moved from Xfinity up to the Cup car. So let's go ahead and give him a grade. Justin Haley, for me, I think he A+. I think he did a phenomenal job. Timed it perfectly because Rick Ware, I mean, you don't just... Justin Haley's a great driver, not taking anything away from him, but you don't just do what he did on your own. That was timed very well with some upgrades that Rick has made at that organization and their technical lines with Roush, Fenway, Keselowski.
Yep. That's where I was going to go with it. I was going to say A+. I mean, I think that was probably his performance multiple times was amazing. To be in the top 10 as many times as they were and just what they were able to put together in an era
credit to the whole team.
Yeah, definitely the whole team. But even like in an era where, you know, pit crews matter so much and that sort of thing, and they were able to fight through that. When you're at that level, you know, that end of the field, that's a tough thing to do. And I think they did a really, really good job. So that got him, speaking of Noah Gragson getting in our ride, to me, Justin Haley put himself on the map for the 7 car with his performance in that 51 car. There's no doubt about that.
So then Daniel Hemric's side of it, the 31 at Colleague Racing, give it a grade.
Do I have to grade the team or him? I
just grade it. It's a thing that happened.
Well, what's funny is that I believe across the statistics, if I could say the word, they were like some of the slowest cars this year. But I think he completed the most laps of anyone this year in terms of like being able to not wreck. He did Daniel Hemric things in that sense. I mean, that team knew they were not going to be great. They weren't investing in the Cup program, hence AJ went down. And I think, that showed in their performance. For him, he did the best he could. So if I have to grade them together, it's a C. If I could separate them, I'd give him a higher grade than the team.
That's fair. I'm with you. I agree with that. Here's a good one. John Hunter Nemechek will be the driver of the 42 for Legacy Motor Club. If you would have asked me 2 seconds ago who drives the number 2042 for Legacy Motor Club, I would not have been able to answer it without a pause.
It was a bit of a hole in the racetrack this year, if we're going to be honest. That's basically an F all around. I'm just going to be honest.
I love John Hunter.
Yeah.
He's a grinder. He is a professional race car driver.
Yep.
But
I think they finished dead last.
There was
points.
so much more attention on everybody else in the field.
Yep.
And he's not the only one I'm going to say that about here. We got a couple other.
Well, hold on, but the only reason you knew they were there is when something went wrong, a wreck, a crash, something broke. It was just like they couldn't get out of their own way. I'm not putting that all on John Hunter. I'm not putting it all on the team. I just think overall they would consider this year an F. They finished dead last in points of the chartered cars. Mm-hmm. Now, that probably would have been ahead of Harrison Burton had he not won. But as we say all the time, winning is all that matters. He won. He wasn't back there. So, yeah, an F. Front Row Motorsports went with Mike McDowell and Todd Gilliland full-time in both cars.
A+.
Yeah?
I think that team continued. They had just hit a stride with McDowell in the last several years and found a way to continue to get better, even with crew chief changes and alliance changes and car changes. They just kept getting better. Like, that's good on them.
I mean, I will say
they will. Now they have faced their ultimate challenge next year because they're in a lawsuit with NASCAR, and supposed to be acquiring more charters and potentially are they moving into the Stewart-Haas shop?
I don't know. That. Yeah,
but. So they're potentially taking a step back here, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but A+.
I'll give.
And they're losing McDowell.
Yeah, well, they're losing him, which that's a detriment because I feel like he's helped build that place in so many ways that one day he'll be willing to tell the story, and it's pretty amazing. But I'm not going to do it for him because he specifically asked me not. So the thing though for them that was astonishing to me was the super speedway qualifying. What in the wide world of sports did they figure out? Because they weren't even a little bit faster every time. There was times they were significant amounts of tenths faster in a car where everyone has the same car. And the field is separated by thousandths of a second throughout. And then here's the front row cars, and they are 2 tenths faster than the field. That was insane. Thought that whatever was going on there, whatever they found out, and the other teams and the other 4 teams were not able to learn or figure out from them, pretty incredible. So, A+
AJ moving back to Xfinity.
F, because he ran into me a lot.
Yeah, F. I think my beloved colleague racing. I just think they had a rough year performance wise. I don't think they were
in the Champ 4.
That was a surprise, though.
Yeah, it was a surprise. He didn't win.
And
until
actually,
Vegas.
you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, Josh. That is a really good point, and that is we need to be very fair because I remember this, and that we probably didn't give it enough attention on the podcast, on the show. So we're giving this grade, we're giving this scenario, the AJ moving back to Xfinity, and colleague racing in general, an F overall. And yet, AJ Allmendinger proves his worth once again as a professional race car driver by making it to the championship 4 in a car and team that was not at its best all year long, consistently all year long.
Yep.
But he showed up at the tracks he needs to show up at the times he needs to show up at, and just somehow willed his way into position. He was not a factor in Phoenix. But
No,
that doesn't even matter, right?
Yeah.
It's like he just showed once and again why he is who he is, right? Why Roger Penske picked him, why Red Bull picked him, why why he is an elite caliber driver.
He gets it done. Man, to give you an example of what, when he won Vegas, that was the big turnaround. And obviously, it got him into the championship 4. He was telling me afterwards, he was like, I went to my crew chief midweek, and I was like, I was looking at the weather ahead of time, and I said, here's what I want in the car. Here's what I want the car to do. Here's what I want in it. They went out there to Vegas, and they were dominant. By far the fastest car. We were pretty good. I think we could have got track position, could have got up there potentially, but he was really, really fast that whole day. And to your point of being the professional he is, he took a team that couldn't win all year and put it on his back and found a win and got them to the championship 4 and vaulted them way further in points. Still an F for having to run against me.
It's still a fail.
Still a fail. I don't like it. No, I'm kidding. AJ's a buddy. We had our run-ins. I still love him like a brother. But, I'm just being facetious. I think he did, like you pointed out, he did a great job in that sense.
So you do the next one, and then I'll do the last ones.
All right. Carson Hocevar will take over the number 77 for Spire Motorsports, replacing Ty Dillon. This was an A+. I don't care how many things he ran into. I don't care how many people he wrecked. This guy is there was a portion there when we got to August, September. I was like, he's going to win a race. He is going to win a race. This is unbelievable. And he's not going to do it at Daytona or Talladega. He's going to do it at Kansas. He's going to do it at, I don't know, Martinsville. I was like, this guy is just shown up. And that 77 team and him have done an amazing job from the drop of the 3rd or 4th race of the season when they got, I think they ran just outside the top 10 at Vegas or even in the top 10. And from that moment onward, pedal was down. He proved his speed. I think if he can clean up the other, that's the big problem. Then he can be looking at a more consistent season. But overall, that was an impressive rookie season. That's an A+ for me.
Okay, so these next 3, I'm going to go back to what I said earlier. I didn't even remember that these 3 things happened until I'm reading them right now. And that is Kaz Grala driving 25 races in the 15 car for Rick Ware. Did that even happen? Did he end up doing that?
I think he did all of them, but I wouldn't, to be honest.
Josh Williams, who I love, good friend, caught up with him on the phone a few days ago, actually. Drove a partial schedule for College Racing in the number 16 Cup car.
I had no idea.
Completely forgot that even happened.
Didn't know he was there.
Zane Smith drove for Spire this year in the number 71. Is this an AI?
I did know about that.
I
would have known that.
Did that happen? Is that a thing that happened?
Yeah, he finished 2nd at Nashville. If you remember, it was really bad to start. Then he turned around, finishing 2nd at Nashville.
That's right.
And actually finished the year with was a lot closer to Carson Hocevar.
I am being really hard on these guys.
But being hard.
That is.
Kaz and Josh, they get the F just because we didn't know they were there.
Zane, can I say something?
Well, hold on. Zane, I'm going to give my score, and then you can go on wherever you want. Zane, to me, would have been a C. It's a passable rookie year. There was a lot of rookie, just figuring out the Cup Series the first half. But once he got that finish at Nashville, it's like the confidence ticked up, the reminder you can do it, and it started to click, and you saw it. So
and he makes the list. He makes the list for bad beats.
Yeah,
he makes the list for bad beats because
the Trackhouse deal.
He got signed by Trackhouse, and God bless Trackhouse. Justin's doing wonderful things, but Zane probably got that typical young driver, development driver treatment where he got signed by Trackhouse because he was hot, right? Mm-hmm. They squeezed him in somewhere, right? Because they had to.
Yep.
So they put him they sort of contracted him out to a Cup car that they weren't really affiliated with, and fielded this Cup car and had him in there. And it's easy to kind of go that way and get forgotten about, which is what happened, because then in the middle of all this comes in SVG, right? New, shiny new object, prettier girl at the dance, wins the races, wins these road courses, has a bunch of sponsorship behind him, or whether it's behind him or Trackhouse is just able to sell him, right? Or both. Doesn't even matter, really. And, they both kind of have their years. SVG's over here at Colleague. in Xfinity, running a couple races a year, but running it for Trackhouse, right? So he's in their car, or well, no, through Colleague, I guess. I don't know. It just is like, it just feels like Zane had a very short period of time where he was the Trackhouse guy.
Yep. And
then it was like, actually, we got another one now. And, you're competing against each other, but it's not an even playing field. Right? Then at the end of the day, Trackhouse is basically, it didn't work out, and Zane's a bad beat.
That's a great point.
Charge that one to the game. Like, literally, Zane probably didn't do anything wrong. Just charge it to the game.
Charge it to the game. That is the tale as old as time in NASCAR. I did it. It was one of the worst things that happened to me in my career, was being farmed out from being in a full-on Team Penske ride when I was development driver there. If you look, they didn't do that anymore with any development drivers past that.
Yeah. I felt like I was farmed out to Junior Motorsports, right?
Yep.
And I loved Dale Jr.
They weren't the level they are now. There's no doubt.
Right, and they weren't, Dale Jr. is a great friend, and I don't think he did a bad job for me, right, as his driver. And there's plenty of things I could have done better for him as the team owner. But, when I was young, I signed with Hemric Motorsports. I didn't sign with Junior Motorsports. I was Hendric's guy, right? I was testing for Chad and Jimmy, and I went to that shop every day.
Yep.
And then it was like, all of a sudden one day, it was like, oh, no, you got to drive to Mooresville. Your seat's up there. You're driving for those guys now, right? And it was a shop full of totally different culture, totally different people. And they, and I was this Hendrick kid, right? They had their guys, right? They had Brad Keselowski was the driver they signed, and were already sort of fit into how they were operating. And so that's the type of things that happen, right? And for those drivers in those scenarios, it's kind of interesting. So
yeah, no, I felt it. I had the same thing. I was a Team Penske driver, but I very rarely got to drive for Team Penske. I kept getting farmed out, and it doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. If you're the team that's going to sign them, put them in the car by you. The best stuff I did and the best results I had were always driving for Team Penske, and that's just the way this culture I was in. And to your point, I was a test driver for them. I test drove all the cars. I did all the testing for the 2-car the year they won the championship. It's like that was the thing I was my job, and then I was racing for something else, right? And it's just like that's a difficult deal. So, to sum up this year, there's a couple more things that happened. We had some driver/team movements from the start to the end of the year. Corey LaJoy and Haley. Oh, what? What, Josh?
You guys haven't given me full rankings for those last three. Do we have F for those?
I gave an F and an F and then a C.
All right, perfect. Okay, and last thing. You guys touched on it, but SVG moving to America and racing full-time in a car that he's never touched before, completely different style. How did he adapt? What was your thoughts on that?
That's a good one. I'd say an A+ for him. And my reasoning on that, he did was exactly what he was asked. He won the Xfinity Series on road courses. That's pretty obvious. He competed well in the Cup cars when he had the chance. He didn't get the win, so maybe that knocked it to an A. But he obviously, look at Watkins Glen, how close he was. And other times it's just like he did what he was supposed to do there. He learned. And one of the things I saw from him that was the most incredible thing was that if you look at the way some of these races went down, with 15 minutes of practice, he'd show up to a place like Darlington he's never seen. He's way off in practice. Then he qualified somewhere towards the back. He gets in the race, and stage 1, maybe there's a little improvement. Stage 2, a little more improvement. And by stage 3, he would be there. He would be in the top 10. And I was always like, where did this guy come from? It was so frustrating from inside the car, but incredible to watch from outside. And so I think he did everything of which he was asked to come over here and experience an entirely different type of racing, to be thrust into a car in the Xfinity Series that is so vastly different than everything he's driven on ovals, which are so different. I think he did a really, really good job. With that, I think next year will be the ultimate test for him. The ovals are going to, your mile and a halves, your short tracks, it is going to be a massive task. And I think he's seen a little bit of that when he's done some of those starts, after they announced that he was going to go full-time in Cup next year. It's just that the problem is making those gains through the race like he did in Xfinity, he won't have the opportunity to make up the track position. So it's going to look really, really bad. So, he might be making the gains internally, but you're not going to pass 20 cars in Cup because you suddenly figured it out. Like, this is not going to happen. So this is going to be really, really tough for him. He's going to have to lean hard in the super speedways and the road courses and, give him the same thing he did with Xfinity, which is get one of those wins, lock himself in the playoffs, and then give himself the leeway to just learn, because it's going to be a massive learning curve.
So, and we have, it's funny how we have talked so much about this format and preached, borderline begged team owners to continue to look at this sort of specialist mentality as a way to make up your season, or even sort of leapfrog your progress, or your way up the ladder. And what he did in Xfinity was a great way to take a otherwise mediocre season, and make it look 10 spots better than what it really was.
Winning does it. What's the grade?
SVG overall?
Yeah. Coming over.
D-. Just kidding.
Loser.
Loser. No. You know what? I think a B+. I like. You said something that I think just really resonated with me, which is I think he did what he was asked to do. Right?
Yeah.
Came in, learned the sport, learned how to race on ovals, learned how to race our style of racing, and win road courses.
Yep.
Right? Like, did what he was asked to do. It's almost like Noah Gragson, right? The Cup, we're going all the way back to our first grade.
Mm-hmm.
Give Noah a good grade because it's like, didn't need to set the world on fire. SVG didn't need to come in and just all of a sudden be some phenom in all the racetracks. And, oh my gosh, it's the first ever Australian to actually be good on road ovals and, out of the box and all this stuff. It's like, no, he showed up and he learned how to race NASCAR style. And, oh, by the way, he continued to kick our ass on road courses.
Yeah, it was impressive to watch. All right, let's do through some of these movements that happened throughout the season. So you had Corey LaJoie and Justin Haley swap rides in what they try to term almost like a transfer, which there's no such thing, from the 7 to the 51. What do we grade that one?
Depends who you're a fan of.
I don't think it worked for either side, to be honest. I think it could have worked better for Rick Ware in a lot of respects.
I don't know. I don't know if we're getting into the prediction side of things yet, but I'll bet you that it will work better for Haley.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not saying it's working better for Spire. I'm not saying it's working better for Rick. I'm not saying it's working better for Corey. I'm saying it's Justin Haley will be the ultimate beneficiary of it.
Got it. Well,
because I think that Spire is only getting better.
Yep.
From here. Look at the personnel changes they've made.
Oh yeah, massive investments slightly.
The what am I trying to say? The crew chiefs, the folks from SHR that are coming over.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting some pretty big upgrades.
No, that's gonna be massive. There's no doubt. I was just talking about this season. So I think this season that swap really didn't accomplish anything for either side. So I think it was more probably
but it's just a natural thing. It just makes sense. We haven't seen that in a while. I think we talked about that when it happened on the show, right? That it's like, oh man, when was the last time you had let's driver swap so that people can get used to each other? I don't think it was really meant to do anything immediately. I think it's more of just we got to do this stuff because it's going to happen anyways.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to F1. This one, I think we're going to surprise some people with the thoughts on this one. Not just because we're homers, but sort of what went down late in the season. Franco Colapinto replaces Logan Sargent at the Italian GP. Logan had struggled to match the pace of Alex Albon, although for beginning of the season he ran kind of a different car. Then he got to the same car, but he crashed a couple times. He basically had a crash at the Netherlands that was too much. Franco Colapinto came in, was fast, was able to score points, but then proceeded to crash so many times. He ruined all of his goodwill from the fact that Red Bull didn't even want to speak to him by the end of the season after they were flirting with the idea of maybe him becoming a Red Bull driver. I'm going to say that in the grand scheme of things, this was an F. Just an F. Sorry. Not just because it's Logan Sargent, who was an American. He just wasn't given the proper help and support to get to the level they wanted him to. And in the end, the biggest reason was there was too many crashed cars. You end up wrecking a ton of cars anyway. So, big F in my opinion.
I guess. I don't know. It's unfortunately for our boy Logan, how can anything involving replacing him be worse than what was going on before?
Well,
you know what? That is a big F, because I think that Colapinto went very quickly from, oh my gosh, young phenom, Red Bull's talking to him, everybody's talking to him. These are all this might happen, till literally 3 weeks later. I think it was not. He's not even. Is he on anybody's radar?
No, he's crashed too much. He's crashed way too much
in a month.
Yeah, that's all it takes. It's motorsports. We move on.
That's sad.
What have you done for me lately?
Just saying that whole process out loud actually makes my stomach ill.
It's horribly depressing.
The kid's what, 19?
He's right around there, 20. And he's actually, I'm being harsh. He's actually been incredibly fast. And
oh yeah, well that's why he got into cars in the first place.
Yeah,
that's why all these teams were interested in him.
Yep, but he did the crashing.
But he made. But think about this, and I know that you have your own personal stories similar to this, as do all professional drivers. That guy's making basically his Formula One debuts at Las Vegas in 30-degree weather.
Yep.
Not a track that he probably has a lot of sim time in, or any physical track time, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. That's actually a really good point. I didn't think about that.
He started at the Italian Grand Prix, not Las Vegas.
Yeah, but it's still like one of your first races, you know? One of my first career NASCAR races was Dover. It wasn't my first race. I think it might have been my second or third race, was Dover, right? What do you think I did in that race, Parker?
Crashed.
Yeah, like I think I hit the fence on lap 5.
I got worse for you. You want a story like that? 2010, October, Charlotte Xfinity race. We had the car tomorrow coming in, so I got to do those 4 races in a Team Penske car, but we were doing it through the 26 teams number and everything. And we did 2 days of testing there. Everyone got like open tests. We were really fast. We qualified in the top 5, I want to say, or maybe like 7th, whatever. And we get in the race, and lap 2 down into turn 3, I was like 4th place. It was super cold night, and the car was a lot looser than what we had practiced and tested in, and I lost it, backed it in the wall. Game over. See you later, boys. Last start for Team Penske that year, and I was like, that was brutal. I think I was still probably in single digits of Xfinity starts, I'd have to guess. So, right then and there. We've all been there, had the speed, you're like, I got this, and then it's like, oh no, you didn't. And I've thought about it occasionally since then, about like, if I was put in that position now, the difference in the outcome of that situation would be unbelievable, right? It's like, probably I just go and lead laps and potentially win the race, as opposed to having a car that fast and dump it in the wall in lap 2, not thinking about, hey, this is a 300-mile race. Maybe give it a second,
Right.
So I get an F in that respect. We kind of talked about Ricardo and that whole situation, so we don't need to go in that one. Last one, Esteban Ocon replaced by Jack Doohan at Abu Dhabi this past weekend. I don't know. I think that was whatever. Is what it is. He's moving to a team. They wanted to get the young kid that they're putting in the car full time next year a race, so he doesn't have those first race jitters, whatever it is. I'd say that was a they all get a passing grade on that one.
Well, kind of going back to the whole LaJoy, Haley, end of the season, why not? Yep. Right? You got pretty low bottom of the grid drivers, low cost drivers. Doesn't cost a whole heck of a lot to make the change into the season. Park Ocon for a week. get doing some experience for next year. Whatever.
All right. Well, that's our grades. We were going to do a 2025 look ahead. We've decided midway through this that we've talked way more about 2024 than we thought we would. We're going to shift that to January. Here's what we're going to do, just so we at least give them a little something that we promised at the beginning for 2025. Why don't we just pick our 3 champions right now here in December for next year for NASCAR, F1, IndyCar. These are wild. We'll revisit them in January. We'll see if we even agree with them then. How about that?
What? This is okay. So is this the part where you pick Denny Hamlin and I pick William Byron?
Yep. I'm gonna go. All right. I'll just do it right off the top of my head here. You want my picks?
Yeah.
All right. I'm taking. No, I actually did this at Phoenix and I had a different response. I'm going Chase Elliott, Cup champion. Yeah. Hey, look at me. I'm going crazy. Look at that guy.
To boost the ratings going into next year.
He's out of control.
Smart move.
Yeah, I know. Look at me. I'm just playing for NASCAR. Remember, they pay us. So yeah. Xfinity. I'm gonna say. I said Christian Eckes. I'm gonna stick with that one. I don't know why, but I think that kid. I don't know why. I don't really know him that well, but I think he's gonna be fast. Truck. I got Grant Enfinger. F1. I'm going for an 8-time world champion of the world, Lewis Hamilton, baby. Give me that one. Ferrari.
Oh, my gosh.
It happens, and they sell a gajillion dollars worth of merch. IndyCar.
That would be insane.
Scott McLaughlin, lock it in. IndyCar champion 2025. All right.
Cup. I am going to. Gosh, I really want to pick a Hendrick driver. I don't want to pick Chase Elliott. I think it's either William Byron or Kyle Larson. Give me Kyle Larson. Xfinity. Who? You know what? I'm going to see a Justin Allgaier. I think he popped the lid.
Back to back.
I think he popped the lid. Trucks. I'm gonna go back to back again on this one. I think here's another one that may have popped the lid. Why am I saying that?
What is that? What is that term? What are you even talking about?
Well, you know the old that idea of like once you get your first win,
yeah, it's easier.
like the rest of them come easier.
Yeah,
I don't know that because I
broke the seal.
didn't quite experience that, but. I think the same could maybe be said for. I'm saying that the same could be said for championships with these two. I'm calling them veteran drivers with Ty Majeski because he's been in that series for long enough, and he's always he's had phenomenal speed when he shows that he's capable of just domination. I think it could be Majeski's year, even though this year was Majeski's year. He won the championship. I think next year is Majeski's year to truly be the all around champion.
All right, I see it.
So F1, Lando Norris.
I
think they've got it together. I think the Ferrari. I like the Ferrari Lewis thing, and my heart is. That's where my heart is. That's what I want to see.
Yep.
But I think that new team. I mean, Ferrari's had some speed, but they also have still had Ferrari-ness, and I don't. So we'll see. I mean, unless Lewis is just like an immediate step up, I think it's going to be more of a referendum on Lewis than it is Ferrari, right?
Yeah, I can see that.
So I'm going to go with Norris. I think this is McLaren. The momentum is in their favor. Let's make it happen.
All right.
IndyCar, Pato O'Ward.
Ooh. Wow. McLaren gets 2 of their championships.
That'd be big.
That'd be huge. Ginormous. Zach Brown, they'll make a statue of him in Woking.
He's probably already working on it.
Oh, man. All right. Josh, give me your Cup F1 IndyCar.
So for Cup, I'm gonna go Blaney. I think we're back to an odd year, so Logano's off the table, but Penske's been unbeatable, so you got Blaney right there.
You giving Blaney 3 in a row?
3 in a row. Did and then with F1, I'm gonna go Leclerc. I think you're gonna have Lewis, but I think they want Lewis in a supporting role. And
what?
What?
Yeah,
Paying him $100 million?
I think they want him
Carry
to
his
develop
helmet?
it. You say that,
You
but
think
it's
they
a
just
hot
hired
take.
on this young development driver? Like, what are you
Look, I don't get paid to race. I get paid to watch him. So I'm gonna go Lewis. I am totally uninformed opinion. And then Indy, I'm gonna go Herta. I think they're gonna shovel a lot of money into development for IndyCar to try and make sure that he can get a super license so he can join Cadillac F1.
Oh,
That's an interesting.
make it.
You also
gonna
meant
make
you were
it.
going Leclerc.
Gonna
on
force
F1.
their hand.
Yes, Leclerc. Yes.
Got it. All right. Well, guys.
Are we not allowing Josh to choose an Xfinity or Cup truck champion?
Yeah, I don't know why I should have said you can have it trucked.
I was curious what that was about, but it's okay.
Sorry, Josh. We don't have time for you.
Hey, Josh. Hey, no, just cut it right there.
That's
Just
it. You said enough.
Just cut.
I mean, oh man, this is a real tough. There's a lot of interesting people that you can pick from in Xfinity going into the next year. I think Carson Quapple could be a very interesting driver to go and look and see what he does. But I think Connor Zilic is going to win the championship next year in Xfinity, and
That's a good one.
that's going to be what it is. And then you can remind me, is Corey Heim in the Truck Series next year?
He will be, yes, for his 50th
If
year.
he is, he's the champion.
Yeah, he is the champion. So there you go.
For his second decade, he'll be in the Truck Series once again. Not allowed to move up from there. So
No kidding.
it's just wild. I'm sure this will be the last year. So, all right. Well, guys, that's 2024. We did a whole year, Landon. A whole season. We committed to it. We didn't give up. We didn't stop. I also usually would say this is where Kyle Busch is coming on, but after the absolute just disgusting disappointment of last week and just proving that we're possibly the worst show in the world, we decided to give him a break for a week. We're going to try for 2025 with him. Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'm also pretty sure he did not return your phone calls this week.
He
to
absolutely
actually
did not.
try to get him on the show.
No. He was pretty offended last week with what went down on the internet, and I was upset. And you know what? It just shows we were just not ready for prime time. So, but 2025, that's going to be our year. Thank you all for listening, for watching, the over 400,000 of you. That meant so much to us. Have a happy holidays. And I know this can be a happy or sad time for some, but hopefully you can find some happiness in the holidays. Give your friends a call. You never know what it could do. Cheer someone up. But for us, this has been great. Thank you so much. We will be back in 2025. Peace. But wait, we're not done. I have to say a massive thank you from Josh, our producer, AJ, our video clips and video editor, Kyle, our partner manager and head of the newsletter and also medium form clips, Brett, who does our graphics and thumbnails, and Landon and myself, of course. Thank you so much for watching and listening to the Money Lap in 2024. As I mentioned, we will be back next year, bigger and better than ever. If you like us, give us a like, a comment, subscribe on YouTube, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, and of course, you can listen to anywhere where you get your podcasts. We'll be back in 2025. We look forward to seeing you there. Have a wonderful holiday season. Thank you so much. Bye.